might have been the reason why he had to retire. Now we also need to understand the physical capacity of a player
Hmm.
to bear a pain is little more than civilian like you and me. The fear is coming from unidentified factors. Now,
Exactly.
a guy and a player returning from injury has a fear of re-injury, a fear of
Hmm.
failure, because he's fought his place into the team back. Personally, think is most of them do it after the damage has been done.
Everyone, welcome to the third episode of Women in Indian Football on All About Football. In this series, we spotlight trailblazing women shaping Indian football. Today, we'll delve into the transformative role of sports psychology with Priyanka Sarkar, Andhra Pradesh's first sports psychologist, helping athletes overcome mental barriers to achieve their peak performance. Well, just before the video, I would like to say that this episode will not just consist of football, it will consist of every sport. So, to have a look, starting off, any words from your side, Ms. Priyanka Sarkar?
To be very honest, I said I watched your podcast, I watched your videos, I watched your LinkedIn posts, and so when Alistair asked me, why don't you do a podcast with him, I was really scared because growing up I only watched tennis, but a journey within many sports is something I am grateful for. And maybe that is what keeps me waking up every day. The uncertainty and the lack of knowledge of technical side of the sports makes me wake up a little early and kind of work harder because I read somewhere that when a player is coming to a sports psychologist, they are bringing their entire worlds with them, the entire world with them. So that is what I want to be really careful about with what I'm digging, their entire world. So let's dig in and see how I'm faring. Maybe at the end of the podcast, you tell me.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, just the first question: what inspired you to psychology and eventually sports psychology?
I'll have to give credit to many people in my life because it's just not one person who's inspired me to watch or to be engaged with sports at this level. As I was a kid, we had a very strict 15, 13 minutes of TV time. I'm sure every kid had. So just to take that advantage from my parents, I would say, let's watch sports. And then my
Hmm.
dad used to switch on tennis of all sports. And when people were watching Sholay or other movies over the weekends, because we just wanted a little difference in our TV schedules. We asked our dad, and we used to put tennis first. And I knew I did not have any athletic bone in me, so the only other side was just to watch tennis. Or my mom would get me tailor-made tennis clothes as I was a kid, or a hairstyle like somebody else. And then I pursued my graduation in physiotherapy, and there I met a senior who
Hmm.
just went abroad to do his master's in sports physiotherapy, and that was in UK. And he called me up from there and once said, Priyanka, this is a very beautiful field and this has very good future. You should do it. And I thought maybe yes, I want to do my master's in sports physiotherapy in the UK or in Australia. But unfortunately, things didn't pan out the way I wanted to. And I immediately started working in the healthcare system of the IT industries like Bank of America, Amazon, I'm sorry,
Hmm.
Accenture, Deloitte, Oracle. And while I was working there, my mom said, why don't you complete your master's? And then I thought, which one would be an easier option for me? And it turned out to be psychology because I already had psychology in my bachelor's degree. And then 2017, I was watching La Decima, Rafael Roland Garros. It was 10th French Open title against Stan Wawrinka. And I have to here emphasize, it's just not players or coaches or support staff, how commentators or sports presenters like you, also make a huge difference in shaping careers of people who come from small towns, who do not
Hmm.
have access to high performance centers. Now, yes, there are many high performance centers coming across the world, but if you look at a small town, sports start at grassroots. Where do they start from? They start from streets or parks or gullies. So I was watching Roland Garros, one of the sports presenters started using these words. You know Stan Wawrinka, he's one French Open, definitely yes, and he was a one tough fighter. And the commentator was using these words like mental resilience, toughness, spirit of the game. And then I just realized that there was something behind sports, psychology behind sports. And then I just casually Googled psychology in the field of tennis because now my
Yeah.
passion has started peeping up again. Then it
Hmm.
showed up a new career for me as sports psychology, which I never knew existed.
Yeah.
And then I figured out two institutions which were offering a distance course in India because I was already a working IT professional back then. I
Yeah.
picked up one course, I did a certification, and it has been one ride of learnings and conversations even from the beginning of my career or even before I could have dreamt of having a career in sports. So when we come back, how it all started, it's just not one person, but too many people. And I would have to thank my parents because when I said I want to work in the field of sports and I'll be the first sports psychologist to do it, they didn't panic, they didn't forfeit. They said why. They did not ask me why.
Hmm.
They only said your wish. All this while you have been doing whatever you wanted, it's your wish.
Yeah.
So I think uh, for every sports person, professional, this is what is important to have conversations, to have discussions, just not to confine their sports experience to watching sports, but also listening community, watching podcasts like yours, or doing much more if they want to start a profession, be it
Hmm.
on the court or off the court, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to talk about the sports psychology thing, yesterday we saw Novak Djokovic in the Australian Open. He uh, retired after his injury because he was going through an injury, and he left the game in the middle. So, what do you think must have happened with Novak Djokovic? Because, as per my knowledge, I don't think I have that kind of knowledge. But you being a sports psychologist, you must know that something might be going in his back of the mind that I will not be able to continue. So, what do you think?
Ideally, athletes are inbuilt with a kind of power that drives them internally and externally. We call it motivational factor. So
Hmm.
now, when you talk about Novak Djokovic, there is nothing that he has not achieved. So from now on, every step he takes on a court is a history. So he's walking on the rod level every now. Walking it for the 11th time. He's trying to win it for the 11th time. He must have walked on it many times. But those kind of moments, like, there is a muscle tear. There are grades of muscle tear. If
Hmm.
he had won first grade one or two, he would have been able to play. I think
Hmm.
which was the reason why he continued to play in spite of having a tear. But as you stretch the body, if you watch the match with Sasha Zverev, or before that he was playing, I forgot whom.
Alcaraz.
Uh, I forgot who was that.
Alcaraz. Uh,
Yes, and two of them are two terrific players. They make you run around the court, and
yeah.
so the muscle is always in active phase. So what must have been of tear one is my assumption again, with little physiotherapy knowledge that I have. So it must have gone to a tear level where you would not have been able to manage with wrappings or medical treatment, which might have been the reason why he had to retire. Now we also need to understand the physical capacity of a player
Hmm.
to bear a pain is little more than civilian like you and me. So
Hmm.
if a player is retiring, there are too many conversations happening with the team, with the physiotherapist, with the physical trainer, with the coach, and to see if he can stretch himself or not. For
Hmm.
people, it might sound crazy, but it is something like an internal motivational factor. Okay,
Hmm.
I can pull this through. I can pull this through. That is what makes every player
Hmm.
different in their own perspective, their personalities, the way their cultural and societal upbringings have been, or
Hmm.
what they want to achieve in the long run is what pushes a player every day in and day out.
Hmm.
So when you look at the psychological perspective of an injured player, he's going through that disbelief that no, it could have not happened. Then he
Hmm.
has to come to an acceptance. Then he has to understand, okay, this has happened. Now what are my next moves?
Exactly.
Can I play or have I to retire? And it is not easy for any player for that matter to retire from a high profile match. He's playing semi-finals, and should he win, given the record against Sasha on
Hmm.
all courts, he would have won that match maybe in 5 sets. But would that body have allowed him to play that long is a
Hmm.
matter that we do not know because we do not know much details about it.
Yeah.
And so once we accept that, yes, I cannot let it go further,
Hmm.
you walk out of the court, you watch him walk out of the court, but there is a lot of discussion happening with the team because
Mm,
we do not know the future of the intensity of the tear. And now there are tests that have to happen, and if it requires a surgical intervention, the player is out of play for next 4 to 6 weeks, depending upon the surgery and the outcomes. Now that uncertainty of the future or
mm,
when they come back to the court, just any football player or any player for that matter of thing, it is a difficult thing for them to process because what they have felt all this while that I am very strong that I can pull off does not does not confine to that. Now they have to stick on to the bed doctor suggestions. You cannot go
mm,
against the doctors or the gravitational forces. You're stuck. And that period of you know time, the period that they have for themselves gives them time to think a lot. You know, other players are playing, they're improving their ranks and getting more points. Now, what will happen with an injured player? And this is where just not a sports psychologist, but everybody comes into picture, like a physical trainer or a support of the fans. And as a psychologist, I would say first we'll ask the player to accept that there is an injury
mm,
and what is the recovery period they are looking at, what is the rehab period they are looking at, and once they get on to the active tour, what are they
mm,
looking out for? Any fears of recurrent injuries or fears of failure or something like that. We deal with them also. So every player who's
mm.
going there only goes to give their 100% on the court. And
Yeah,
I want this human side also to be emphasized that we as fans also need to understand that the other person is just a human being, but trying
yeah,
to do the best that he can do on the court.
yeah.
So we need to be a little empathetic because if you have watched the crowd
Exactly.
moving and an
Yeah,
opponent has to come in and say, no, that is not what you
exactly.
do. That is also sportsmanship, and that is the beauty of sports.
Yeah.
And that is what it teaches you, sportsmanship as well. So that is what my perspective of this.
Yeah, yeah, you summed it up quite nicely, and it happened just a day or two back, and to witness such a great player facing this kind of challenge, so you too feel for him, and it was a challenge for Novak, and I know he will bounce back. But coming back to your role, to your journey, so what were the challenges for you as a sports psychologist, and being the Andhra Pradesh's first sports psychologist? So what were the challenges that you went through?
The first challenge, I did not want at all to be this podcast to be a hindrance for people who want to work and come and work in the sports industry. But
Hmm.
again, there is and I like to take everything on my chin. I did not leave a very beautiful career or take a detour all of a sudden waking up. This was not just, a decision that I took lightly. So I do not
Hmm.
want people watching this podcast to think twice before they jump into sports. I want more people into sports, more women into sports, not
Yeah.
just playing, but we also need support staff because we it's a holistic development for a player that matters. You just don't throw a player under the technical bus and just say go improve and win
Hmm.
trophies. No, that's not what happens. So I did not know that I was the first sports psychologist until I reached out to a cricket academy.
Hmm.
And one thing I really regret is we are coming of age. There is more awareness on inclusivity and gender equality, but my counterparts, my male counterparts, my colleagues,
Hmm.
all they have to do is go take their CV. And I say this with utmost respect to the men everywhere there, because for me it is not, they beat us down to pulp in physical capacity. But
Hmm.
we are just talking about cerebral equality, okay? So I can go, if let's say I start to work at 9 o'clock and my male counterpart starts to work at 9 o'clock, he only has to go, check his work, finish his work with the players, has have his lunch, tea, whatsoever, come back home, relax with his family. I, as a female counterpart, go. Then I'm giving those looks, okay? Okay, she's just a female. We don't need to say good morning, ma'am. Then, okay, I put in strict rules saying, okay, you cannot come in late. You come and wish me good morning every day. And while you are going, you say thank you because it is my time, energy, and expertise that I have spent. Now, my male counterpart does not have to explain this, or he doesn't have to do that. I don't know. I just don't think it's XXXY chromosomes or DNA structure. But there is something that the world perceives men, professionals, with all due respect again. Now, my work is not just done there. Then I also have to tell people why I'm single, why I chose sports as a profession, why could I have not done something else? And then I also have to face casting couch. Again, when I say this, this is not victimization at all. This is about choices. So it was a very beginning of my career, and then I had a choice either to succumb or to stand up. I decided I chose to be on the braver side. Even if I'm a little late in succeeding, I will succeed. But I succeed on my own terms based upon my choices. And I have to mention this. I reached out to a school administrative head. He was not an administrative head. He was a founder. He was a president of some association. And then he said, after quite few conversations on LinkedIn, he said, why don't you come to my office? I went and he said, we also do have a receptionist post vacant. If you want to join this role, we can go ahead and give you the role of a sports psychologist. I said, I do believe in dignity of labor. That doesn't mean that I just succumb so low that hope that you'll give me a sports psychologist role as it can different does. So these are the choices that you make very bravely with uncertainty, with a hinge of uncertainty, knowing you do not know how this will be perceived as. So it has been tough, but there are also players who think, okay, she's just here. All she has to tell me is do this, do this. Why is she being bossy or authoritative? People do not understand assertiveness to authoritativeness. So there are certain things that we all face, but again, I'm not going to complain because this is my choice to stand tall and work in this field and be a trailblazer. And every step that I am taking right now is a history that I'm trying to make for myself, but not for the state or something. You do not look at the state in a bigger picture. What you do is you wake up every day no matter what has happened the previous night. And after that, everything you do is just trying to write your page on your own in the history. So life has not been easy, but yes, I would say whoever is watching this podcast and whoever wants to join sports and sports psychology or any other profession for that matter, it is your choice whether you want to succumb or you want to stand up tall. And trust me, when you stand up tall, it will matter a lot because it will give you the satisfaction that you have an inner strength that you did not notice yourself. So coming from the streets of a very small town uh, to be the first sports psychologist, I would say I'm immensely grateful for that evolution of inner strength in me. Maybe a few years back, if I had faced this in an IT industry, I would have just quit, come home, got married, and done something. But then I realized I've come this far, not to just come this far. And so hopefully many girls in the future, there is another girl as a sports psychologist right now in Andhra Pradesh. And I hope just we are not the only two, but the state allows more sports for psychologists or more sports professionals and importantly female sports professionals to come into the career and come into this field and enjoy a career, a long lasting and non-regrettable career, I must say.
Yeah, like you mentioned, people listening from you that of course there are challenges, but I too believe that women face more challenges in the job market as compared to men. So, and the way that you summed it up, it was quite great to hear. And it felt like a TED talk, the last part that you have to be brave. So I'll take that with me. It's kind of some motivational words for me. Yeah,
Very
coming back to the topic because the podcast is related to Indian football and football in general. So just wanted to ask the first question is because I watch football more. Of course, I do watch tennis, badminton, and everything, but football is my go-to sport. So talking about the individual and team sport. So what is the kind of mentality that you require in an individual sport and in a sport that requires a team, a complete team to perform?
So football is a team sport which has too many different personalities, too many characters.
Mm.
One might be driven by the socio-economic cultural diversities that we all come from.
Hmm.
or the familiar settings back home. So a son or a player coming from, I wouldn't say son, a player coming from a nuclear family would act totally pampered and he would be just like want to be the captain. And
Yeah.
a person who has come from a joint family would like to be, okay, okay, I'll be the silent performer. So, and then you have the new trend is everybody calling themselves Maverick. I don't
Hmm.
understand what is Maverick. So I just went and Googled it and I saw it is a rebel. So that is one phrase now the generation of players want to align themselves with.
Hmm.
I want to be a rebel in sports. Okay,
Hmm.
now agreed. Now what do you want to do? Break rules? Because that is what a rebel does. Break rules. Goes
Yeah.
and breaks bones of our opponents and be disrespectful. You cannot have an obedient or a charismatic or a hardworking rebel. There are no two ways about it. And in that kind of play, I have one such kind of player. I have a leadership skills player. I have an optimist. I have a pessimist. And I have somebody who is just watching from the sidelines, thinking where is this moment coming to come with all these colorful characters.
Hmm.
Now, just like football, cricket, every team sports is a blend of such characters. Now, it is the technical coach who decides how to identify and put them on their in their place of play, the midfield or goalkeeper or whatever. And that particular person, if you put a leadership skills person somewhere in a place where he doesn't have to perform much, he's not going to shine. He's going to suffer. He's going to have that emotional disturbances, thinking, okay, my skills are not being utilized. He leaves the sport because of unhappiness. And
Hmm.
in a country where sports is just an upcoming thing, an upcoming profession, we do not want such thing to happen. So
Yeah.
I suggest even I tell this to every football academy or a club that I work with. Start working with a sports psychologist from the moment you are in the talent scouting phase,
Hmm.
because based on the characters and uh, aligning the technical skills and the personality skills, you know if you can keep a rebel as a goalkeeper, if you can just change his attitude and personality to sports psychology. Now if you can do that instead of putting a silent and a silent guy there who who is a little let's say for the lack of word, proper technical word, that he's not so assertive, he's submissive. If you put a goalkeeper, if you put a submissive player there, goal in a goal post, nothing is going to happen. He's going to be intimidated. But if you put somebody at a leadership, who's at a leadership skill, got leadership skills or characteristics there, he is
Hmm.
going to help the team much better.
Exactly.
So that is what I tell the club owners or team coaches. Okay, you have to start from there. Not once you have picked up the team and you tell the sports psychologist, okay, now go ahead and do the mental toughness part. The
Yeah.
mental toughness starts from the time you have recognized that this person has a little ability in him.
Hmm.
And now the holistic upbringing is you check his strength and conditioning, nutrition, and mental mapping as well. How his character, his personality aligns with the position for the team. Now,
Hmm.
what sport, they say sports is hectic, they say sports is, sports just should be recreational. But what sport gives is immense happiness. There
Hmm.
is no other physical activity that can beat a sports. If no physical activity comes near sports, if I can say that. So
Yeah.
how do you use that physical activity to improve your mental toughness on and off the course? Is how you utilize your sports psychologist in your sports facilities.
Yeah.
And when I'm looking at individual sports, now tennis, badminton, and everything are individual sports where now there is sideline coaching, but when you're playing, you're just playing with the racket
Hmm.
and against an opponent. The kind of thoughts that go through are fear, there is fear, there is fire, there is this kind of uncertainty. When the opponent is kicking you big time, you don't even know what is going to be the next step. And for
Yeah.
that, I emphasize on emotional intelligence for individual players. But again, I also emphasize this for team players. But
Hmm.
individual players, I emphasize on emotional intelligence because it is important for them to be self-aware and opponent aware as well. Or else they'll be just doing the same thing and they'll be just losing before even the match starts. So these are two different perspectives. A team sports, you look into the characters. With individual sports, you look into the emotional intelligence. So that is how I work.
Yeah, yeah. And the way you summarized about being a goalkeeper and you have to be assertive, not submissive. And being a goalkeeper myself, I started out quite an introvert style, but then I got to know that the goalkeeper needs a complete different skill set. You have to be commanding, and your defender should listen to you. So, and we saw a great example of the same in the 2022 FIFA World Cup final. Two goalkeepers, Argentina and France. The Argentinian goalkeeper Emi Martinez completely be intimidating the France penalty takers and
Your voice is
just we are just mentioning that we saw in the Argentina and France final as well in the 2022 FIFA World Cup that two different goalkeepers, Demi Martinez being the one who started intimidating the penalty takers of French players, and opposite to him was Loris, who was not able to do the same, and that is the result why we saw France missing two penalties, two crucial penalties in the finals as well. So it requires a different skill set, and you mentioned it quite brilliantly that it requires a different skill set, and you have to develop those skill sets if you need to be a goalkeeper, and you have to take and keep that kind of players only. Um, and that was a great answer. But coming back to the another question is that sports psychology. What do you think Indian clubs can do to integrate sports psychology into the facility? Because the one thing that I have noticed, because I have watched footballers, and the one thing that they say is physical training is nothing compared to what we have to go as mental training. Because physical training is quite easy, and you have a schedule and you can follow that routine. But for mental, it's completely different. You lose a game and you get disappointed, and you need someone to cheer you up. You need that mental toughness. So, what exactly do you think should Indian football clubs integrate for sports psychology?
first off, I would say please acknowledge that if there is a mental aspect of the sport, and once you acknowledge it, accept it, and then start working on it. So now you don't want to work with the player after he has been disheartened or after he has been disappointed. Now you also have to start working with a sports psychologist before everything starts, because you know the sports is quite unpredictable and wins and losses are a part of the game. Now you don't get into coaching knowing that this is a forever win for me. And no coach gets into that stage. But sometimes what happens is, with all due respect to all the stakeholders, I work with many, so while maintaining that respect, what I would like to say is external motivation through TEDx talks or speeches or locker room speeches
Hmm.
is completely different from what you have to do to motivate a player when he's completely down. Now, I appreciate the pep talks. I appreciate the TEDx speeches. Now, what do? They just give you that motivation for half an hour or 1 hour. And once you go back, the coach says, watch the match and see where you have gone wrong. You
Hmm.
don't remember the pep talk or the TEDx speech anymore. You
Exactly.
kind of remember how you lost the match. You come back and you suck. So
Hmm.
now this is what most owners and franchise club owners or technical coaches for that matter do. They say you can do it. Yes.
Hmm.
The assumption is that because I'm taught you the technical side, you can do it.
Hmm.
But now I said, don't be afraid. Yes, agree. But where is the fear coming from? The fear is coming from unidentified factors. Now,
Exactly.
a guy and a player returning from injury has a fear of re-injury, a fear of
Hmm.
failure, because he's fought his place into the team back. Now the
Hmm.
coach is saying, don't be afraid. But is he telling you how to cope up with the fear? The
Exactly.
TEDx speeches or the pep talks do not actually tap on the internal fears. And if I can tap that, maybe the fear would be gone, the player would be motivated in the long run.
Hmm.
So, how do you do that? It is clarity of thought, decision making, the ability to quickly move on from a failure and move on to the next goal. Now, how do you do that? When you do a goal setting, you clearly mention this is what my goals are. And what are my weaknesses? Okay, I just had an ACM there. I had to undergo rehabilitation. Now
Hmm.
the setback is I might not be able to be as active as I used to be. So I have to push up my strength. I have to regain my composure. I have to get back to active strength. And this is a process. And you have to overcome the fear and the overthinking part which says, can I do it? And how do you do that? Through internal motivation, through visualization, through imagery. And they
Mm.
say, I work with many players. Okay, then I ask, do you have any routines that you follow? Oh, my coach is my mental coach. Okay. When I
Mm.
say coach, yeah, technical coach. Okay, what did he ask you? He asked me to do yoga, he asked me to do meditation, breathing exercises. No, sports psychology is beyond that. There are many research articles on many aspects of sports psychology. Just asking a player to breathe in, breathe out, or do yoga or meditation calms the person, but how long? But the fear is there, the the condition is there.
Mm.
And when you said about the goalkeeper, he's a mercurial type of goalkeeper who likes to flash, if I might say. So those kind of players, where they have they relate their identity to sport and their rebellious nature. God
Mm.
forbid if that kind of player had to uh, have an injury, he's
Mm.
just going to fall flat. And in those kind of times, your pep talks or TEDx coaches or TEDx speeches don't work. You have to work with a mental coach or a sports psychologist. And for that, I would always tell the organizations, have them from the beginning
Mm.
before it is too late. And you don't come to a sports psychologist once the pep talk has failed. Before giving the pep talk, come to let the player work with them and give the liberty for the player to work with the sports psychologist. More players, in India, this is a very regular fact that happens, and I am the I am one of those most secret keepers in sports industry, if I may say. Please don't tell my coach that I have come here. I know that my coach knows you, so please don't tell my coach that I have come here. So why my coach wouldn't understand? He would ask, why do you do sports psychologist? What's wrong with you? No, you're perfect. Just go and do hard 10 push-ups, will be fine. The push-ups have nothing to do with mental toughness, if I might say. So this is what I would say. Be open to collaborations because when you say, I want my player to win,
Mm.
you want him to win in a better way, in a holistic way. Don't want him to win a trophy and collapse with depression the next day. And if
Yeah.
you, and there are also questions. There are players who did that in that a time when there were no sports psychologists around. There was no concept of sports psychology. But yes, they had emotional intelligence and they had support of the family.
Mm.
Now everybody is stuck on social media or in front of the TV that did not have family time. We did not have
Yeah.
a strong support system we used to have back then.
Mm.
So if I watch many people, okay, when a player is playing, rather than watching the sport, they're trying to flash their phones and record it. So now, when do you clap for your player? Once you go back and watch the recording, or when you're in person? Imagine 100 people recording and nobody cheering for the player.
Yeah.
So that is how it has become. I would like to say this organizations and the clubs. So start from the very beginning. Be open to have a sports psychologist at the table for your discussions, and don't confine them to just let them watch and observe for the time being. No, let them be active from the very beginning because they're experts in the field. They're just not some naysayers. They have done their certifications, they have done their courses and that something they're expertise in their own field. So it is important for the clubs and organizations to acknowledge and accept sports psychologists as much they accept that there is a mental side of sport as well. So if you look at the IPLs or ISL teams for that matter, they all acknowledge sports is a mental side. They say 90%, 10%, 80%, 20%. They're all statistics. How
Mm.
many teams really do have sports psychologists? No, not many. But do you know how many people some individual can take work with sports psychologists in anonymity? There are many actually, and it's just not me who would say that. Many of my colleagues would say that. So we respect their privacy and confidentiality, but being open, uh, from the clubs and organizations will help the players in a better way now that they don't have to sneak in and come and work with us. They can come openly. They're like, okay, I'm watching a show. I'm going to a sports psychologist. That is the kind of world in sports psychology that I would like to see. Without apprehensions of player going and walking into a sports psychologist cabin and taking along their worlds with them, just not going in sneaky. That's a long way to go. I'll be very honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like you summed up that a player needs a sports psychologist when even when he's not going to a tough phase, but even when he's going through a good phase, he still needs a sports psychologist so that he doesn't go to the seven heaven or feel that I am the best. You need someone to keep you in the lane. And one example that I have, because I am a huge Lionel Messi fan. So, one example, when he failed in the 2014 FIFA World Cup finals. So, at that time, after that, because he continuously lost finals with Argentina. So, at that time, he mentioned in a recent podcast a year back that he needed a sports psychologist to get back from that bad phase. And at that time, he was not able to mention it to anyone. But now in 2025, we see a lot of players, a lot of international players who are accepting it publicly that we need a sports psychologist to overcome a situation. And one of them is Mohamed Salah, the Liverpool man. So,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
What I personally think is most of them do it after the damage has been done because they do not know what is the nature of damage.
Exactly.
So aftermath, you have to clean up the whole thing. But if you know that this is an issue, if you
Mm,
have those conversations, open conversations, okay, when you enter sports, all you just not get is cash money or trophies or tournaments or
mm,
injuries. There are also times when you have to face fears or uncertainties or nervousness or anxiety. Those kind of conversations, if we begin much earlier, you
mm.
know, these aftermath conversations will not happen, and on time or in time necessary measures will be taken, and everybody will be safe. We want a safe sport, a psychologically safe driven sport. So early conversations will help us a lot. Everyone will.
Yeah. And I had an important question to ask you because you must be having female athletes as well, male athletes as well. So, what is the difference in both of them in terms of psychology? Is there a same psychology for both of them, or both these female and male athletes uh, face a different kind of mental pressure, mental challenges?
No, female mental pressure is too much because now they have to. The first pressure is to allow to convince the parents that sport is just not their recreation or a hobby, but it is profession that they want to take up. And we have had many female players who have broken the barriers and they said, okay, this is what I want to do. But nothing came easy for them. They have had supporting a good support system, or they had to be a little they had to put their foot down to say, okay, now this is what I want to get into sports. The first barrier they have to break, the first convincing or the first pressure is to convince the family and tell the coach, okay, give me a fair chance, coach, because I also have this. And now the monthly cycles that they have to go through, and their body is growing. Now, you ask me, now I have to tell you this. I was working with a sports university,
Mm,
and there was a basketball match happening. And one of the players just tried to put her. When I say this, I'm just not saying this about only female pressure, mental pressure. I'll come back to female mental pressure again. I have to mention this. The young player, like 18, 19 years old, he was studying in college. He just did the Cristiano Ronaldo side, typical where you pull up the shot. And I heard a girl saying, "Wow, what a nice timeline." And the guy started feeling intimidated, and he put this thing, and he became conscious from the very next moment. I was watching. The player could not perform for the next 5-10 minutes. I had to stand up, turn back to the girl, and say, "Please keep your mouth." Really, I had to tell this. Please keep your mouth shut, or else I'll ask you to get out. Get out. I don't care who you are.
mm,
Now, when we say this, we only think girls have to go through this. Even male student athletes have to go through this.
yeah.
I don't have a name for what it is, but for me, the player becomes conscious
Mm,
because now he's being gauged not on his physical or technical abilities to play the sport, he's being gauged on the physical aspect, which is quite wrong.
yeah.
And now coming, that is what happens. Student athletes who have to go through that barriers of
Mm,
what do I say, assessments, visual assessments by players by people who don't even know what the sport is. And
yeah.
coming to girls, they're nothing less. They have to go through so much to be able to perform. And then they have their monthly cycles, the hormones sweating, and then you have to be a little cautious of the clothes that you're wearing. Now we have manufacturing brands, sponsorships, everybody coming a little fair towards the women players as well, because Wimbledon has had the best change.
Mhm.
They're allowing women to wear colored underwear because all white. Wimbledon is all white. You play on grass court in all white. Those
Right.
kind of small changes help more players come onto the ground.
Yeah.
So, but having said that, does this take away the pressure that the female players go through? No, it
Yeah.
is too much. Now they are thinking, oh my God, my body is changing, my weight is increasing, I'm playing, but then there is somebody else watching. If
Yeah.
I don't play this well, they'll say, I'm not able to play because I'm a girl and I'm meant for the kitchen or I'm meant for the studies, but not for the playground. And
Mhm.
these female players also come with a timeline. I work predominantly with student athletes. So this is what I would say. They
Mhm.
come with a timetable. They say, if I don't win at least something by the time I'm 20 or 22, my parents will get me married. So
Yeah.
now there is a performance pressure, and every time they take up a racket or they take up football on the field,
Mhm.
whereas they're pushing themselves and they're stopping to enjoy the sport for which they began to play the sport.
Mhm.
So what female players go through is totally different from what male players go through.
Yeah.
And Serena is the biggest example of what she had to go through because of her muscular body. And Nobody talks about Sinha, though they say his legs are cute, but nobody talks about him like that because
Yeah.
the way men command respect automatically is different, and women have to fight for it.
Mhm.
Having said that, I appreciate all the female athletes who come and play on the court, increasing the sport participation to a new level.
Yeah.
Now, BCCI has said equal prize money. There are other organizations, other sports coming and saying equal prize money, which is a good thing. This
Mhm.
will increase the participation of players in the sport. But more than on the physical side, for this participation to increase and to continue, it
Mhm.
is a sports psychologist work the uh, to continue to work with the players where taking away the pressure, the timeline pressure, the success pressure is what a sports psychologist's nature of job is. You
Mhm.
don't have that kind of pressure with a male player. He's coming playing. Okay, my dad says if I don't win this match, maybe I'll get a government job in sports quota. That's his maximum satisfaction that the parents will a government job in sports quota. But female players, it's very difficult. So if you have to check that way, it is quite difficult as well for the players and the support staff. And you cannot, when I say gender equality, you treat them equally, not worrying about the gender that they come from, but the way you deal with their systems or the pressure systems is something that have to be dealt in a different way, is what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And just a final question from my end. What would you want to say to the upcoming sports psychologists, especially women? Because this episode is based onto the same. What would you like to say to them? And what are your words to them? What are your words of motivation to them?
I would say, see, you're a girl, you would be noticed. You would be noticed for your positives, you would be noticed for your flaws more than anybody else. But
Mm.
as long as you wake up in the morning, no
Mhm.
matter what has happened in the night, the previous night, you have already won yourself a point. So there is no life that is without hesitations, without fears or uncertainties. Uh, I would say your the path that you choose can be anything. You want to be a ball girl, be a ball girl. You want to be a player, you want to be a player. But have a clear goal. If you want to have like you want to be something, write down how you want your profile to look like in the next 5 years.
Mhm.
So when you look at like, okay, this is how I want my profile to look like in the next 5 years, that gives you the purpose for you to wake up every day for the next 5 years and do things that are meant to help you achieve that goal that you wrote for 5 years later. So do not give up. I will not promise you a bed of roses, a red carpet,
Mhm.
or air conditioning rooms. No, you will have to face a lot. And how you choose to deal with it is what will determine your future and what you tell the next generations of how you have overcome. So whether you want to be brave or you want to succumb or you want to be a spectator or you want to be The person being cheered for is completely in your hands. So don't step back even if you face an adversity. I say this with utmost experience. I come from a very small town.
Mm,
When I say sports icons, they don't even understand anything. So I
mm,
have to tell them, explain again in my own language or my native language. But it gives me immense pleasure to tell them, okay, I do this because that is an, I'm just throwing them uh, ideas of what they can do with their lives. So someone in the near future picks up a course and says, Priyanka has told me to do this and I did this. I'll be more than happy. In your journey, when you write your purpose, if you could just go ahead and uh, unconsciously or subconsciously impress one person and influence one person to take up sports,
mm,
your life is fulfilled. No matter the trophies, the tournaments, the prize money, the cash money, the photos, the accolades, the red carpet will all come. But if you know your clear purpose in life, the first thing if you have come half the way and you want to
mm,
give up, remember that you did not come this far only to come this far, and
mm.
you have something better than the rest of the people. And that is exactly the reason why you have been able to come this far. So
Yes,
pick it up from there. No matter what has happened the previous night, wake up every day, check your purpose, and tell yourself that no matter what, I'm not going to give up. Don't tell yourself fancy stories or fancy lines telling, I'm going to be the next Cristiano Ronaldo. No, because Cristiano Ronaldo can be only one. You can be just a female, whoever player you are, whatever name you have,
mm,
whatever strength it is that you have. So be you, don't try to emulate somebody else, and don't let your purpose be carried away by somebody else's impressions of you or your impressions of somebody else. So what is very important is keep your head right between its shoulders, mind clear, make the right decisions. Okay, if you want to take wrong, if you take wrong decisions, it's okay, accept it and move on from there. Learn something from there, and do not fall a victim for self-pity. Always aim for grace, dignity, and self-respect, and you'll go places. That is what I aimed for, making bold choices, and hopefully everybody watching this podcast can do that as
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was a great podcast talking to you, Ms. Priyanka Sarkar. I learned a lot about sports psychology and everything related to it. Um, so yeah, that brings us to the end of the episode. Any words regarding the episode that you would like to say?
Oh my God, you scared me because, as I said, you should tell me how I fared. But what you've been doing for football is immensely brave. I watch your episodes.
Hmm,
They're brave, they're authentic, and what you do is you bring that uncanny side of football. Never heard stories or not holding back stories that gives people like me a platform to express opinions and to think to and for others to actually take up sports, either recreational level or play
hmm,
professional level. So you are opening platform for many people in a way you do not know. So I
hmm.
hope to see very more videos from you, and I wish you the very best. And thank you for everything that you are doing for the field of sports, for the field of football, and for women in particular. So thank you for giving me an equal opportunity, and I wish you all the very all best. That's what I would say.
And all the very best to you too as well. And thank you for your support as well to sports psychology and your contribution to sports psychology as well. So that brings us to the end of the episode 3 of Women in Indian Football at All About Football. This episode was typically considerate of all the sports. So do have a look at this episode and do like this episode. Drop your comments and don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well. So this was Miss Priyanka Sarkar, a sports psychologist, and I particularly learned a lot from her. So yeah,
Thank you.
hope you do
Likewise.
the same. Yeah, bye. Thank you everyone.